We've got a great session here. You're going to meet some returning community members. And I have to say, from a personal standpoint, and I'll make one comment up front. Yes, I'm a volunteer prison chaplain. And tomorrow you're going to hear me as an Angel Team member and mentor. But tonight I'm a volunteer prison chaplain with the privilege of sitting between two people that I met over 15 years ago when I started being a volunteer prison chaplain. And it gives me goosebumps to sit here with two, I would say, of the best friends I have at Third Church, for sure. Darryl Scott, Quentin Waters. These are two brothers of mine that I have known for that long. My wife, and I'm speaking for my wife and I, who have first met these two men. I'm speaking for the other volunteer chaplains who ministered to these two men. And it's been a privilege to get to know them while incarcerated and since incarceration. I could go on, but let me say this. Tonight, we're going to hear about their stories about how they found Christian Science or how Christian Science found them, and all the way up through the point of being released. Tomorrow, as Paul Harvey said, you'll hear the rest of the story, because tomorrow afternoon, you'll hear about how these men have lived their life since the day of release and what role the branch church has played. It's a great story. So let me start right away with the questions that I've had the opportunity to ask my two friends here and also LaVelle, Searcy. So the first question is, how did you find Christian Science, or how did Christian Science find you? Who wants to go first? Darryl?
Well, what I did was in 2006, I had a friend who was given a book, and he didn't want to read it. It was called The Secret. And I thought it was a conspiracy book, and I like conspiracy books. So I said, well,
bring it right up to your mouth.
I said, well, I want to read it. And he said, okay, you can read it. And so he said, but I need it back by the next day. I said, okay. So it was 184 pages. So I read it that night, and I loved it. So I said, next day he came back and said, can I have it back? I said, no, you can't have it back. So he said, okay, I'll let you have it for 3 more days. So I read it some more. So that introduced me, you asked me how that introduced me to Christian Science. So right after that, it was like all of a sudden Christian Science came into my lap. Said one of my best friends named Ken Bailey, who's in Oklahoma right now. I went fishing with him this last Monday. And he was a Christian Science practitioner. I mean, not practitioner, but he was a Christian Scientist. And he said, hey, we just started Christian Science here at Cofield. That was in 2006. And so he said, why don't you come to a service with me? I said, okay. So I went to the service. We read the lesson. I loved it. I said, I grew up a Southern Baptist. So we believe that Christian Scientists, so, right. So I said, okay. So I loved it. So I got Science and Health Key to Scriptures. I got the lessons. And so I started reading. The first chapter you got to read is prayer. And the first thing it says is prayer and desire. Right. And so that's what I started reading. So then I started going to it, and then I started getting the lessons. Elizabeth Arnett there started sending me the lessons and stuff. And so I read it, and we had some really good people in there. Quentin was one of them.
Greg
Dinsmore. And then we had Robert Bryant, and we had
Robert Aldrich,
and we had Ken Bailey. So, and it was all good people. And so I said, okay, so I enjoyed it so much, and it grew and grew and grew. And we had different volunteer chaplains, and Woody actually filled in for somebody named Darryl Armstrong, who went to
Iraq or something.
He went to Afghanistan to teach in a college. So he came in and he started showing us about Christian Science and how it worked, and about practitioners and stuff like that. And so I said, well, listen, we need a practitioner I would also like to take, when you take the, what do you call it?
Pat?
Class instruction.
Oh, class.
And so I never got to
instruction.
do that, but I'm going to. But anyway.
Yay.
But so then, so who came next time? Patty, is his wife, Patty Woodard. And then John Bourne was already there, as a chaplain, and he brought his wife, who is our reading room person, and Brenda Bourne. And so it started from there, and it grew and grew and grew. And we had a lot of people used to come, like 100 and sometimes.
We did.
Yes, and that's how I got into it.
So that's how you got into it.
Yes.
Thank you, Darryl. All right, Quentin, let's hear your story.
Well, technically, you know, being locked up, I studied various different religions when I was incarcerated. And you know, I had a friend that told me that about Christian Science. And at that time I was studying pretty much everything. And I was like, no. But I was in the fields at that time. And if you get a lay-in, you can miss the fields. So
the field is the outside, by the
Yeah,
way,
you work
in the heat in
outside.
Texas.
And so he said, if I get that lay-in to go to Christian Science, well, it lays you in. You're laid
It's
in
permission, a permission slip.
for not to go to work. So
Right.
Permission to go to a class or.
yeah, and so I said, okay, let me get that lay-in to go to Christian Science. And you know, I went in there and like you said, it was a bunch of great guys in there, and the volunteers were wonderful. So you know, and after I got out the fields, I kept going to Christian Science. So that's how I technically how I discovered Christian Science.
Then this next question, LaVelle, are you online? Can you tell us how you found Christian Science, or Christian Science found you?
Yeah, so what happened is the fellow there, he was actually talking about Christian Science, and I listened to it, and I read a few pages of the book, and from the few pages I was interested. So what I did was, because they didn't have literature there, he told me about Megan West. Well, January 8th, 2018, I contacted Megan West. And when I contacted Megan West, that was it. I was introduced to Christian Science, and I never wanted to leave it. I'm never going to leave it, and it's the realness in my life. And so and that's how I was introduced to it. I was introduced to it through overhearing a person. His name was Yusma, and then talking to him, and then he gave me her address, and I wrote her, and she wrote me back immediately. Gave me the bylaw, gave me the principles and everything. I read them, and God started working right then and there. He doesn't play.
That's great, LaVelle. Thank you. That just shows the power of this science, whether you get it in person or whether you get it through a corresponding chaplain.
Yeah.
It works. It's awesome.
Certainly.
Question number 2. What kept you coming back to Christian Science service?
Well, this for LaVelle.
Go ahead, LaVelle. You can answer that.
Well, what kept coming me back is it was God working in me, and I always say that. And again, I have to keep giving Megan this credit, because it was her who consistently wrote me, and I consistently answered calls from me. However, it was the God working in me. I started reading about I'm not material, I'm spiritual. So I got out of that realm and I got into that. And as soon as that happened, God started manifesting himself in me and working. And when he did that, everything, I was reading Mary Baker Eddy, the Christian Health and Science, Key to the Scriptures, and it just kept working. I mean, it just kept working, and everything wasn't perfect, but God was, and he was perfecting it in me. And I had to change my thinking, and that happened. And when that happened, I knew that I was in the right place. I knew God was putting me in the right place. It took a long time for me to accept that. But when I got to Christian Science, I fully accepted it. He put me in the right place. And so that's why I kept going, because there's no use in leaving the right place and end up in the wrong place.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Quentin, Darryl, you wanna?
No, he won't.
What gets you back?
Yeah, so what kept me coming back was what I learned in Christian Science, and also I read some books about Mary Baker Eddy, and I read miscellaneous writings and some other stuff. So because I was raised as a reader, I like to read,
Oh.
and I got plenty of time to do that. I got
Just up to-
plenty of time to do. I'm sorry, I got plenty of time to do that because you have time to do things when you don't have nothing to do. You work and come and be bored. But I was in the dorm. As a matter of fact, one of the people that's going to be here tomorrow, Richard Miles, was in the dorm with me, and I was there when he got out in 2012. So at Cofield. So I can't wait to see Miles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, he's
So-
gonna be here.
So anyway, so I kept learning stuff, and I kept seeing, I saw how it worked. And I saw how it would, like the fellow talked about the toothache, how that works, and seeing the truth of it, seeing what isn't the truth and what you say was an illusion, what's not real. And that helped me out a lot. So I wanted to come back more and find out stuff every week. So I read my lessons every day of the week, so I would know when I got there what it was about. And so that made a big difference in my life, and I was really thankful for that. Plus, the volunteers and all have helped me out tremendously. I mean, tremendously. Of course, when I paroled out in 2016, February 12th, 2016, I went to my brother's house in Colorado, and he and I had a little falling out. I'm the older brother, he's the younger brother, so we didn't see eye to eye. So I came back down to Texas, and well, I guess I'm still at tomorrow.
We're gonna tell that story tomorrow. You're gonna hear that story tomorrow when he came back down to Texas. So Quentin, why did you keep coming back?
Well, I think you can read your Bible in your cell, or you can read a correspondence in your cell and still have a great understanding with God and have a great understanding, relationship with Him. But the reason why I kept coming back to Christian Science mainly because of you.
Oh dear.
Because of you. And
Oh. That's it.
that'll sum it up.
Yeah. Oh, that's dear. That's why I keep going back. So I can meet people like Quentin and Darryl. And what an amazing experience. I'm going to move to another topic, healings. And while you were incarcerated, you were learning about Christian Science. It was becoming more important to you. But perhaps you could share some experiences or ways of applying Christian Science to overcome physical healing or mental challenge, or, just a challenge of being where you were. So maybe you could share some of your insights on that. LaVelle, do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, I don't mind. Well, I tell you, God answers prayers, and Mary Baker Eddy talks about healings, and I mean, she explained it through the Jesus Christ. And I thought about something. I'm going to say this before I said that. I told a fella, I said, if you didn't know where you were going and you asked me where a certain place was, and I told you I knew, and I told you to follow me, when I get to that place, where would you be? He said, well, I'll be at the place you at. I said, absolutely. I said, so if I follow Jesus, then where would I be if I continue following him? So I kept following the teachings, and I kept following the inspiration regarding healings. And I had a hernia or something in my stomach, and I prayed about it, and I asked God to remove that, and he did. I mean, he really did. And I know the date and everything. And so it was June 21st and of 2000, I think 20, I think it was. And he removed that. It's been so long that not only did he remove it, I don't even think about it. I never even have I never even don't even remember having it. And God in Micah, in the book of Micah, in the Bible, chapter 7, verse 19, he specifically states that I will remember your sins no more. He said he would cast them into the depths of the sea. Here's something that I want everybody to hear. When God casts your sins in the depths of the sea, you need not go deep sea fishing. Don't go deep sea fishing because that's where they're at. So that's what he says, and I'm so grateful for that. And I'm and I haven't had illnesses to be healed from, but what he healed is my spirit, and he healed that, and that's a continuation. And again, this it works. Prayer works, and it's been working for me, and all these things have been working wonderfully. And I'm happy, and I'm very, very happy that because I didn't know really what that was. The doctor said it was a hernia, but he's a doctor, and I mean, I guess I listened to him. But God did the work. He did it. He did the healing there, and that's what happened. I mean, He told me what it was, and God showed me what He can do for it, and that's what He did. And He took it away, and I don't remember it. And I wrote the Sentinel about it. I actually sent an article to the Sentinel about it, and everything because I was really, really, really grateful to God for that healing, and
Right.
not just that, but yeah, that's what happened.
Thank you. Thank you very much, LaVelle. Either of you want to?
For me, the best thing that ever happened to me while I was in prison was to see what Mary Baker Grady says, to see as each person as the image and likeness of God. And that helped me out tremendously because when I would have problems with someone, I would see them as who they are, and it would literally change the whole atmosphere, everything. And what was the problem would go away. And that, to me, that was a big thing. Besides, I mean, one of the best healings I ever had was not in prison, but it's actually from my the gal I date, my girlfriend Christina, and I was telling her that my back was hurting me. I hurt my back. I was at work, and I was actually working for who's the person, the second reader of our church now, Nancy Hinger.
That's right.
And so when
We'll get into that tomorrow.
right, okay. We'll get that.
No, that's all right. Yeah, we'll get
Just
into
like
the
going
healing
in.
tomorrow.
Yes, they're going in. And so she prayed for me. So I was on the phone when I told her that. So I hung up, and all of a sudden I felt this great thing. You know, Mary Baker Eddy says, when you feel that one little glimpse, and I got that, and it was awesome. And I called her right back and I said, "What did you do?" And she said, "I prayed for you. I saw you as my children. When I see my children, and saw that you were perfect and you were an image and likeness of the Father, and there was nothing wrong with you." And that was awesome.
Wow. Somebody was just mentioning about what we learn when we go to prison and we're taught by the inmates that are there. This is one of those examples. We just get these insights that are remarkable.
I think my biggest healing is when I think my biggest healing is when I hurt my knee. I was in a tournament in the penitentiary. I was in a tournament and I hurt my knee, and I just prayed to God using the knowledge that I gained by being in Christian Science just to heal my knee. I thought I would never be able to run again, and I like to do athletic things, and I just prayed and I healed my knee.
I have two other questions of my friends. One is, when did you know that you were ready for release? LaVelle, you want to take that one?
Yeah, well, I think that was I knew I before I was, because of the achievements, and because of God working in me. However, I was a unit clerk. I was a whole bunch of things there, and I was getting all these letters of recommendations from the warden and people in high positions, some officers. And so they granted me a release, really, I mean, the same day I seen them. However, it was the day that I was supposed to be released, which was April 4th of 2023. And so I got ready, and what my plan was, and I had told Megan from the beginning, I said, I don't want to leave out of here without Christian Science. I want to go to the church immediately, the same day. And I mean, if I could, but that was a Tuesday. So I had to go, and I went Wednesday to the Wednesday testimonial. I went there, and then I went Sunday, and ever since then, I've been going refusely every day, every Wednesday and Sunday. So I knew that that I was going to be released maybe almost 8 months before it happened.
Great.
So yeah, so I was ready at that point to get involved, and so I have been, and so I will continue to be.
Great. Thank you.
Well, for me, Woody asked me this question, and I said, day one,
Day one.
I was ready to get. But I wasn't really ready because it took time. So I spent 16 years and 7 months. So it took time for me to get myself where I was really ready. And so, but when well, we're going to cover this tomorrow. But anyway, anyway, I was going to tell you, but when I got out, I wasn't ready. So because
yeah.
because when you're in, you see, because somebody asked me, they said, what did you get most out of being in the military? I was in the Air Force for 7 years. And I said, they taught me how to survive prison. They taught me how to do prison. Because basic training teaches you everything you need to know about being in prison. What to do, when to eat, what to wear, when to take a shower, whatever the sergeant tells you to do, you got to do it, right? So when you're in when you're in prison, it's the same way. They tell you when to go to the shower, what clothes to wear, when to go to eat, when to go work, everything. But when I got out, I went to my brother's house in Colorado, then it was a totally different story because I've been used to somebody telling me what to do all the time. So now I had to get my life back in order and find out how to make that happen for myself. And that was the hardest part. And it took me a little while to do. Coming back down to Texas helped me a lot. But I got a lot of support from Woody.
We'll get to that tomorrow. So you're ready day one, but really not.
Right, really not.
Well, this is an easy question. Day one. God may tell you something else, but day one, I was ready to go. Day one.
Yeah. Quentin gave me that short answer. Day one. And you just knew.
Oh, day one. As far as I
We're
was-
not
as
going to
far as
go into that
as far as I was
anymore.
concerned.
Let me ask, what role did the volunteer prison chaplains play in your experience while you were incarcerated? What role did the volunteer prison chaplains play in your experience while incarcerated? LaVelle, are you ready to go on that?
Yeah, LaVelle's ready to go. Okay. Well, again, this has been so wonderful. I have a practice.
In your case, it was a corresponding chaplain, right?
Yes, yes. However, she might as well have been there. Because, it's a saying that she's got, and it's walk with love. And, the love this lady, and I'm talking about this practitioner, responded. She was there. She gave me references to get materials. I got a Christian with science, a key to the health of scriptures. Health and science with key to the scriptures. Got that. I got the Sentinel. I got the Monitor. I got a journal. She introduced me to Jeff Harbin. Bless his heart. I love him to death. And David Fowler. She put me, see what this practitioner did is she put me in the realm of everybody who were like God and listening to God. That's what she put me in. And so when she put me in that realm, it was just so wonderful because all these people, you came into that realm, Bob. You came into it and called me about this. This is the realm that Megan Williams put me in. These are the things she did. And although God is the leader, he speaks to her. I'm going to tell you something. I'm not going to be long here because I don't want to do that. You know, I was in a restaurant with a fella, and he was talking, me and him, well, it was Reverend John Taylor, and we were talking at the table. Now, the restaurant was kind of crowded. Other people was talking. And I asked him, I said, hey, Reverend, you hear those people? He said, yeah. I said, what they're saying? He said, I don't know. I'm not listening to them. I said, that's probably how it is with God. We be involved with so many things that we don't hear him talking. I said, because we involved with so many things. And it's these type of things that make it had me thinking. I like what that fellow said in Texas, what he said about you have time to do a lot of stuff in prison. He's right. You can do a lot of things in prison, and probably one of the least things people want to do is religion, unless it's going to get them somewhere, get them out, or get them some money or something like that. That's the less thing. But if a person takes time out and read, like that fellow said, and do that, and do the work, pray, and understand healing, especially Mary Baker Eddy's, and do that, then you will grow spiritually, and it will happen. So Megan Williams, this is what she did, and everything she did involved me doing something surrounding my spiritual growth. And I love her. I don't care. I love her, and I do, and I love her. I love her whole family. So she has been a great inspiration to me, and I wish she could be there, right in the buildings themselves, at every one of them. I know she ain't spread herself that thin, but I wish she could, because I believe a lot of people, based upon her knowledge, based upon her spirituality, her wisdom, and everything that God's given her, I believe that, because you got to be spiritual to get it. You can't. Mary says we're not material, we're spiritual. So you're not going to. The Bible says that the natural man can't even understand the things of the spirit. So don't even try to understand it that way. You got to listen to God.
Yeah.
You have to.
Right.
So that's what happens.
Thank you, LaVelle. We're going to meet Megan tomorrow, so that's wonderful.
I joke about that one day thing. That's why I say God would say something else. If I were released and that the first day I got there, I would have never got the opportunity to meet the Christian Science volunteers that came in, from Woody to Troy to Alan to his wife, and it gave me the opportunity to be a part of Third Church of Christ, and I've met so many people there that affects my life, and it was a blessing being a part of being locked up, so I had the opportunity to meet the volunteers,
Beautiful. Thanks.
So first question is, Bob, Woody,
Yeah.
was I the first person you helped when you got out, to get out of prison, when I got out of prison?
Yes.
So I was getting out, I got it, and so they set me up with Sunnyside's Foundation.
You're going to hear all about that tomorrow.
I know.
I know.
But
you are.
without meeting you, or John Bourne, or Brenda, or Dick Upshaw, or Dick Sumner, or Darryl Armstrong, all of this, they taught me so much about what Christian Science was and what the truth is. And that helped me out a lot, tremendously. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So maybe I'll put it on my chin. So if I hadn't have met them, like Quentin says, then who knows? But God always, when you put prayer out there and you ask, God always supplies the need. And so my need was supplied by meeting the Christian Science volunteers. There was so many good people. We had people come in that talked to us and helped us out. And we had questions, they answered them. Thank goodness for Patty and Brenda and John and you, because y'all answered so many questions for us and helped us out in our walk and our path in the Christian Science. Thank you.
It's great. Yes.
I think the reason the three of you, all four of you, have been so successful is your receptivity and your humility. You just put aside yourselves and opened your arms, embraced us fully.
Mm-hmm.
And that just speaks volumes for us.
Yeah.
And I'll Susan, thank you for that. And I think what I'll do, I'm sorry, do you want to?
And
Respond to
listen,
that.
when you go out here and you look out here and you see what that's written on those walls right there and it talks about gratitude, that's what you have to be grateful. And I am very grateful for everything that's happened to me. I'm grateful for Christian Science. I'm grateful for all the volunteers. I'm grateful for everybody that's helped me. Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Darryl. Let me open it up and for any questions that you have of my friends and LaVelle online, anything about what their experience was like while they were incarcerated. Because tomorrow we'll ask them about what life has been like since.
Both of you, when you said that the military had taught you how to live in prison, I'd like to know what positive growth you've taken, what strengths you gained that you've hung on to.
Well, for me, I was able to go back to college and finish my 2-year degree. I didn't finish 4 degree, but 2-year degree. And then I also was able to read things that I wanted to for growth. I learned a lot that way. And every time I always was very grateful for everything because I believe God always takes care of me, takes care of everybody. So like with me, what happened to me a long time ago is I had a bad car accident, broke my skull in 3 places and 3 ribs, and I had a near-death experience. And I got to talk to people in the light, and they told me I could come with them or stay here. So I knew what Mary Baker Eddy said when she said, "You never die, you don't." And so anybody doesn't know that, so I'm telling you, you don't. So.
You want to hear from Quentin? Yeah.
You know, I was incarcerated for 21 years. And I think if it taught me if I can make it in there for 21 years, it makes things more simple out here dealing with various different people, because you're incarcerated with people that you may not like, but you have to get along with them in order for you to coexist in there. So I think out here I get to choose who I want to be around more so now, and I really think it gives you, well, it gave me power, psychological power, as far as dealing with situations out here. Makes it more easier, because in there, you know, you got to deal with them, because here you can run from problems, you can run to something safe and something happier, but in there you can't. So it made me stronger mentally, yeah. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Do we have any questions on Zoom?
LaVelle, do you have anything
Or yeah.
you'd like to answer to Susan's question?
I was in the military as well. I was in the United States Marine Corps, and I was there 4 years. I guess I can identify in part with, being taught to live in prison, but I don't think my destiny was to go to prison at first. I don't think that, but now I believe it was. Because again, I have to agree, if God didn't put me there, if I didn't go there, then most definitely I probably wouldn't have met Megan West. Furthermore, if I didn't meet Megan West, I probably wouldn't have came out this way. And the reason why is because I was reading here and I was looking, mind science is wholly separate from any halfway impertinent knowledge, because mind science is of God and demonstrates the divine principles working out the purpose of good only. The maximum of good is the infinite God and the ideals, the all in all. Well, I didn't know nothing like that. I wasn't even trying to know nothing like that. Didn't know. And absent knowing that would mean that this condition that I'm in, I wouldn't be in, because I am spiritual. I never thought that. The reason I'm 5'11", the reason I weigh 200 pounds, and the reason I'm this big is because I ate food. My mother fed me, then I started feeding myself, but I never fed my spirit. I neglected it. It wasn't until I started feeding it, I started growing. And now I'm growing. And so now I see what it all means. And I'm gonna say one last thing because I don't want to keep this. I'm gonna say one last thing. Yeah, I was telling Bob the other day on the phone. Imagine this. Imagine if we all went outside right now and we seen a plane in the air. If our arms were long enough, it almost seemed we can grab that plane. Looks that small. If our arms were long enough, but they're not. So just think how God must look at our healings and our thing. They must. A hernia looks big to my stomach. You know what I mean. It looks everything, but to him it must look like a crumb. It must, because he sits on high. And so these are the things that I think about. Now, these are the things that Mayor Baker Eddy leads me to when she talks about healing and when she talks about stuff. So I'm not going to say that necessarily the Marine Corps made me or prepared me for that. I think God did. I think God was the one who did that because I needed to be in that place at that time so I can meet Megan Wetzel. So then that way I can do this service for him. I think it's all divine. I don't think it's something that's haphazard or for chance because we're spiritual and God's word goes out and don't come back void. So I just got a different perspective on that, and I think that's how I did, and I believe that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, LaVelle. That was wonderful. Any other questions?
I have a question, and my question is for any one of the gentlemen speaking. While you were incarcerated, and you were beginning to change in your consciousness and thinking of yourself in a new way as a Christian Scientist. I've heard a gentleman named Troy talk about when he was incarcerated, his behavior changed in prison and other inmates noticed that it changed and some were very unhappy with him as an individual. Did any of you encounter any kind of situation that was similar to that where other inmates didn't like the new you because you weren't like weird or jerky or however they behaved, that they were comfortable?
You want to take that?
Who, me?
All right, go ahead, LaVelle.
Oh, okay. Well, in retrospect, in actuality, and I guess I'm an analogy person. Actually, I'm thinking about God had put on my mind to become a lecturer, and I'm thinking about that. However, I told a story, and I'm going to tell you how it happened to me. I was going to a store, and I'd seen a guy outside the store. He was not dressed, he was dressed sort of shabby. He had on shabby shoes, and it appears, because I didn't get to the store yet, he was asking for money and trying to, get things from the people. In my mind, I said, that guy is a bum. I said, that guy's a bum, or he a drug addict. That's what I said in my mind. Because when I got to the car, he confirmed it by asking me for money and everything. Well, I thought about this. I said, well, wait a minute. If I can judge that guy based on what he does, why can't nobody see that I'm a Christian Science bro? Why can't nobody see that I'm a Christian? Why do I got to tell somebody I'm that? I think that guy didn't come tell me he was a bum. He was actually doing the work of one. So, when I was in there, when you started doing a different work, when your character started changing, people started knowing it. But it ain't me, because you said thinking of yourself as different. No, it was the way I was thinking God was looking at me, not me. I had to move out the way. David Fowler told me, you got to step out the way. And I stepped out the way. And when I stepped out the way, then my walk became different. My talk became different. And that's what people noticed. And that was the problem. Because in prison, you're supposed to have a different personage. You're supposed to be like, you're supposed to hate the police. You're supposed to do all this. You're supposed to do that. But God is love, not hate. So then a lot of things changed in that realm for me. And other people could see it. And that's what the problem is. They can see that you have something they don't have. And a lot of people always want what other people have, and some people don't want to go about getting it the way they got it. So, that's the best way I can answer that.
Yeah. Great, LaVelle.
Thank you.
The biggest thing for me was the word repent. Because
Yes.
when Mary Baker Eddy was teaching and to repent meant to change your thinking.
I'm doing things on Thursday, no.
Right, and that's what helped me out. And so when she always says you put, how did she say it? You put it in your mind how the perfect thought of how your
Perfect
perfect thoughts, perfect mind, and then you'll see it in bodily result. So that's what I started doing. And so when people see that, they say, well, what are you doing that's making you different? So then I tell them. And they're like, oh, well, whatever. You know, don't do it. But it worked for me. If it's worked for me and it set an example for others, like he was talking about actions. LaVelle was talking about actions. So he saw this fellow came up with this thing, and that was an action. So as you start doing actions of what you want to be, what you want to become, then it starts to come out in bodily reality. But it has to come in the mental first before it can get to the physical. And like Mary Baker Eddy says, physical is not real. We're all spiritual beings, and we are. So we have to realize that.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Darryl. You want to say anything? Want to add anything to that or not? You don't have to.
I think it's human nature for us when we're exercising the human side of us, and then there's our spiritual side. It's human nature for us to not to like anyone that's not like us.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, that can happen. Except if we look at what you said, look at the spiritual side, that the real side, that we are the children of God, and that is it. Any other questions that you have? This has been great. I hope you've enjoyed this session. Let's give these RCMs a good round of applause, please.
Big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautifully done.